khona maka-understand umuntu ukuthi kubuhlungu ngoba kwenzakala so. But into engizobuhlungu ukuthi why singatshelwa ukuthi fanele sikhiphe home.
Uthi nje ngesinye isikhathi angithathe ngizibulale ngihlale ngizibulale.
For our government, it feels like they are more into money than the people's lives.
In life, because I thought my life was just over. I thought that was just the end of everything.
And in which we received affidavits of 48 women who alleged at the time that they had undergone forced or coerced sterilization while in the care of public health facilities.
And the challenge was that most of these women didn't know after, before 3 years that they were forcibly sterilized.
Now, the Commission for Gender Equality says that it wants the Health Department to investigate forced sterilizations at hospitals in all 9 provinces. It found close to 50 women were forcefully sterilized at 15 hospitals across the 2 provinces over 2 decades.
Bulisele, Commander-in-Chief, we fighters, we commissars, EFF in Africa, people of the world. Namhlanje sizothetha nge-sterilization, or something called forced and coerced sterilization on women who are living with HIV or else diagnosed HIV positive. And today we are going to be speaking to Sis Promise. Sis Promise is one of the women who is always a common denominator on the stories of women around South Africa who've come to approach the EFF with the issue of being sterilized without them knowing or being coerced into sterilization. So these women, they were always mentioning that there is an NGO where Sis Promise was helping them, a kind of social support, moral support, psychologically, and she had undertaken studies to confirm that their stories were actually true. They were not fabricated. Something we find very problematic as an organization, that today there are women out there, when they are trying to tell their stories of sterilization, the government still does not believe them, and the government is not doing anything. And we are now aware of the Commission for Gender Equity report, which made recommendations to the Department of Health for reparations on the women who have been sterilized. And that report has never been actioned to date. The report was released in February the 24th. The Minister of Women, Children and People Living with Disabilities made a promising statement that they will take care of the report recommendations, they will table it to Parliament, they will put the budget aside, they will ensure that women in South Africa are taken care of, and those that have fallen victims of this forced and coerced sterilization will be taken care of with every aspect as mentioned in the report. But today has been 4 months later. There is no mention of the implementation of the recommendations. None of the victims have been taken care of. And some of the victims that have come through to us to date, they can't have a proper sexual life. They cannot hold urine properly. Some of them, they still have issues with their uteruses. Some whose uteruses have been removed altogether, they are living with infections throughout. They bleed since the day their uteruses have been removed. So as the EFF, we've taken a decision that all these stories will put them together. We have a legal team that's going to assist them, But what was most important is that we need the world, not just South Africa, we need the world to hear their stories individually. That is why today we are going to be talking to Mrs. Promise so that she can take us through her own experience, take us through how she has tried to reach out to the world and seek assistance for the women in South Africa and in Africa. We know that there's been so many protocols, so many treaties that our country has signed, and one in particular that talks to violation of women is the Maputo Protocol, and South Africa had signed that protocol. However, it had breached it itself. Women in South Africa have been violated through the sterilization, and it has forced women to choose between accessing the ARVs because they are HIV positive, through getting sterilized before they can access the ARVs, which is not true. Access to ARVs is free and it has no condition. For the fact that you are HIV positive, the diagnosis says you are HIV positive, it's no longer even the matter of if your CD4 count is now below 200, but you have a right to be given ARVs by the government. If you choose to access them privately, that is also fine, but government has to account. You have a right to access ARVs without being conditioned into either removing your womb or having your tubes cut, and you will not have to have children anymore. We have a working treatment of mother-to-child transmission, and it's a myth that if you are HIV positive, you must be sterilized because your baby is going to be HIV positive. And that is also adding to the number of HIV positive people in the country. And that is why today we're going to be meeting with Sis Promise. Hey, Sis Promise. Welcome to the EFF. We're actually glad we are meeting you at last. After having met so many other women mentioning your name, I'm glad to have met you today. But I know you as this Promise. Please tell us who you are exactly.
Okay, I'm Promise Mthembu. I come from KwaZulu-Natal. Although I'm finding myself in this province for now, but my home is in KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you very much for inviting me here and for showing interest to listening to us, as in myself and other women, in relation to the issue of forced sterilization. We are really grateful that members of parliament are coming to the women as individuals and as political parties to listen to our voices. We are glad that this is happening after such a long time, seeking audience with women who are not only our role models, but women whom we believe are representing our interest as women.
Now we are grateful to receive you. We are looking forward to be working with you and finding a solution, by the way. So in the line of duty that we do as the organizational party, we're also members of parliament.
Yes.
And being members of parliament, we reach out to communities and through committees and different constituencies. But in our line of work, we came across a sterilization issue. It was brought to our attention. We work with some of the women who brought the issue through. But one thing that became common with their stories was your name. That we are here, we've been trying to seek help. We've been trying, Sis Promise has been trying to help us find closure. We're looking for seeking justice. We're looking for assistance. We're sick. We are suffering. We are traumatized still. And the issue of sterilization, the way they have put it to us, is that it was forced, and in many cases it was coerced. And one story I found particular was that now it has been entrenched into the women's mentality that if you found HIV positive, you must just take out of your womb, you must not have children, you must not get yourself involved in anything that's going to make you create babies and all those things. But your name always came up on top. How did you get involved? And why are you always being mentioned by these women?
Yeah, I suppose I got involved because feminists will say the personal is political. My involvement in this work was informed and influenced by my own experiences. Many years ago, in 1997, I'd recently been diagnosed with HIV, and I went to hospital because there was a gynecological procedure that they needed to perform on me. That procedure was not going to require that I go to theatre as such. So everything was prepared, but then when it was time for me to go to theatre, the doctor, who was a senior consultant in a hospital I was attending, Prince Msheni Hospital in Umlazi, my home, said that he would not be able to assist me unless I consent to sterilization because I have HIV and I should not continue to have children because I already had a child at that point. So basically the procedure was not performed that day because obviously I was shocked, at the time, and I wanted to, try and understand, what is it that he meant. Because at the time I was already working in the HIV and AIDS field and I knew what my rights were. So the following day he came again, and what I had was quite painful, and I needed to have it removed. So I signed for sterilization because he would still not assist me without me signing for sterilization.
Okay, I was taking my treatment in Mthembu hospital. Okay. And then, mangihamba lapha eMthonjeni ngithatha treatment yami. Ama-doctor athi kimi i-CD for cell count yami ayikhuphuki. Instead ukuthi ikhuphuke i-CD for cell count yami iyayehla. Angibuza ukuthi nginenkinga na. Ngithi mina inkinga enginayo sometimes mangihlangana nepartner yami nginokuva ubuhlungu. Athi kimi ngistophe nalento yokuthi ngibe pregnant, ngilo ngitholana nabantwana ngoba ngizoshona mangilo ngibhizi ngizala ngapha nge-HIV positive. Athi kimi umbono wakhe ukubona ukuthi ngcono bangikhiphe isibeletho ngoba mina nginenkani ngoba I lost 4 children just because lesikhathi nge-HIV positive, thola ukuthi nge-HIV positive ngaba pregnant, umntana washona ngaphinda ngaba pregnant. Athi kimi udecide ukuthi ngcono ngikhiphe lesibeletho lesi. Ngithi mina mangikhipha isibeletho mangabe mhlambe ngizothola umshado ayida sengifuna umntana ngizoyenza kanjani. Athi kimi if ngikhipha isibeletho ngizofa. Anginikeza amafomu angitshela ukuthi kumele ngisayine lamafomu lawo. Otherwise if ngisayine lamafomu I'm gonna die. And so ngathuka that time just because I was young. Ngoba it was 2007. Ngoba ngikhipha isibeletho. Angitshela ukuthi if ngisikhiphile isibeletho lesi I'm gonna die just because ngine-AIDS. And angiloko ngibhizi ngizalana nabantwana ngithola abantwana bese abantwana after bayashona.
Is that what they told you? Is that what they explained?
And ngizo-end up ngine-cancer ngoba ngiyazala mina ngiloko ngibhizi ngitholana nabantwana ngapha ngiyazazi ukuthi ngi-HIV positive and it's a risk ngoba abantwana ngapha bayashona nokushona. I-firstborn ngayithola bengingakazazi ukuthi ngi-HIV positive bese lo munye bese ngizazi ukuthi ngi-HIV positive ngo-98 mangithola umntana ophila kancane bese umntana uyashona. Nalo munye futhi ngamthola nge-7 months pregnant. Lo uqina ulungi ngimthole nge-7 months pregnant. Ukhona lo ngamthola waphila 6 months after umntana washona. And that time phela bengingakadla ama-ARVs bengakabi khona. But uDr. Makali into wangitshela ukuthi ngizofa ngoba mina ngiyafosta ngilongibhizi ngiyazala ngapha ngiphethe i-AIDS. Ngilongibhizi ngitholana nabantwana and ngizoyenda lapha ngine-cancer ngoba ngilongibhizi ngiyazala.
So let document abakusayinile nabaku-explainelanga ukuthi
mawujela nje uthi sayina anginika amaphepha bathi ngisayine ngathi ngithi bathi nje nikusothi Dr. Mele ngisayine ngoba into engizoyenzakala ngizoshona ngizofeni so bengingafuni ukufa.
So I was then taken to theatre for sterilization primarily, and also for the procedure. You know, and as I said, the procedure could have done it in my bed in hospital. I mean, I was very hurt at that moment, and also angry. You remember that I was very young, and it felt to me that I have just bargained my rights to access other rights, because I have a right to be treated. If I have a gynecological issue as a woman, the Constitution guarantees me that, and I also have my reproductive right and not being forced to do what I don't want to do. So I felt as if, it's a bargaining, a situation. From that day, my life has just never been the same. And it has never been the same because, from that moment I felt if I have HIV, I remain a woman. But if I have HIV and I'm sterilized, I sort of feel like half a woman,
Absolutely.
And yes, because my womanhood has been taken, the functions, like the core function of my body has been taken in a way. Not that I considered myself as a reproductive, machine, but for my own personal reason, it was important. And to other women, it's important that you are able to bear children, if you want to bear children.
Okay, mina ngomunye wabo owahlukumezeka ngahlukumeza ugovernment. Isibeletho sami sakhitshwa ngendaba yokuthi ngi-HIV positive ngaforced. Anginabantwana namhlanje. Ngashonela abantwana abayi-4, mangiceda ukushonela abantwana abayi-4 bangitshela ukuthi mina ngikhiphe isibeletho ngoba ngiphethe i-AIDS, otherwise ngizofa. That's why nga-end up vele ngikhipha isibeletho. But ku-painful manje ngoba ngashada ngokushada. Ngathi mangishada nga-end up ngiphelelwa umshado, indoda mayidiscover ukuthi mina anginasibeletho. Nga-end up ngifostera umntwana. Mangimfostera bekana 2 days. Ukhulile namhlanje umntwana una-13 years. Kwamele ukuthi ngimtshele ukuthi it's a foster child ngoba ngisaba ukuthi uzozwa ngabantu. But at the same time ngiyathuka ngoba ngiwari ukuthi umntwana njengoba khula manje ngangitshela ukuthi ufuna umama khela ngizoyenza njani ngoba anginayo mina umntwana ukuwami.
And people will know that women don't just bear children because they want the numbers. As women, we bear children for our own personal needs, biological needs, but also children are your social security in the world of poverty, gender-based violence and isolation that women have. For an example, that if you have children or more than one child, chances are that someone will take care of you in the old age. Women, you'll be able to keep that piece of land because the chief would want you to have a boy child for you to give you a piece of land. You are able to, be lobolad, someone will lobola you because you'll be able to bear children. And by the way, like in the research that we've done, women have had lobola being revoked and men refusing to pay lobola because they are now is a nyumba. And from where I'm seated, having HIV, it is stigmatized, but being inyumba, as in a barren woman, is stigmatized even more.
And ngaba nani problem futhi emshadweni. Indoda njengoba ngisho ukuthi nga-end up ngidivorce ngoba ngithola ukuthi anginasibeletho. And sibe ne-challenge singabafazi abanganey'beletho ngoba mawune-boyfriend bayithola ukuthi uku-HIV positive ngapha unasibeletho bathi uyigogogo amadoda ayabaleka. It's painful, siphile kabuhlungu. And so government makayenza iplan ukuthi abone ukuthi uyenza njani ngoba kubuhlungu ukuphila ngaphandle kwesibeletho. Ngiyafalela manje ukuthi ngathi ngingaba nomntana ukuwami, but it's painful angikhoni ukuthi ngibe nomntana ukuwami nalo mntana lo inhleli naye at the same time futhi ngapha ngishaya uvalo.
So that is how I got involved. And also what I was seeing from that point with my consciousness is that when we are talking with other women in support groups, in TAC support groups, even before the TAC, because TAC was formed a year after I was sterilized, women will talk about their experiences and then they will say, then I was sterilized. So it was like a normal theme that was there. Then they bang valile, then the sterilization, and then it became clear that this was a big issue that needed to be addressed.
You are mentioning that you had to bargain and
yes.
You had to choose a life through losing a life.
Exactly.
And my interest is, was it explained to you what could be as side effects of you being sterilized? Because as I listen to you, I see it was coerced. You were made to believe that for you to access life, you must lose part of your life. So was it explained to you as to what would be the side effects of this? How will be your life in the future after having a sterilization as a young person at the time?
No, nothing was explained, apart from the fact that you have HIV and you have to be sterilized. And it's not a conversation like we're having a conversation now. It's you being a patient on the bed, it's a senior sister here, a staff nurse, and a doctor who's a senior consultant. You are basically being told that we'll do this if you consent to, you sign this form for sterilization. Nothing was explained, like in terms of the side effects, what would be the implications of me, as I continue with my life. They told me that I'll be taken to theater, but I didn't know what exactly is it that they're going to be doing in theater. How are they? They didn't even say that they're going to cut my tubes. So it was like, yeah, you're going to theater because you are going to be sterilized.
Even the term sterilization was just not something you understood at the time. What did it actually mean? So they just made it out to be a law, that you have law that says you must sign this document in order for you to access this particular operation.
Operation, yes, yeah. Yeah, I knew that it meant I would not be able to have children in the future. And the way it was presented, it was, like it's a given. This is the law. If you are HIV positive, you should not be having children, and we are going to sterilize you. Nothing explained, and afterwards, after some time when I tried to help myself, because I have a disabled child, and my goal, and my daughter is severely disabled, she needs care like 24/7. My goal was that, okay, I will have another child for my own personal fulfillment as a woman, but also for security of my child. I would look at my child like trying to play with other children and think, how would life be if my child was playing with the siblings? And I had HIV, and at the time I knew that I would pass one day, and I was thinking, that, I would, when I pass, if I die, I'll probably die, in peace, if I know that there is a sibling that will take care of my child, that will sign for my child, that would advocate for my child. And that was taken away from me. And when I started to try and see whether I can do something to try and have another child and reverse this, I did a scan, and the scan showed that, first of all, my scar was just way too big. That's the first observation that the gynecologist, made. This scar is far too big and clumsy. And secondly, when he did a scan, like a deep scan, he realized that they had cut my tubes and also bent them. And he didn't understand that because cutting them would have been good enough. I was 22 years old, for crying out loud. So cutting my tubes would have been sufficient. So why cut and bend them? And that indicated, the violence, the desperation to kind of punish me in a way for having HIV, violate my body. And from that day, I knew how my tubes were cut and bent. Each time I see the medical instruments, the gynecological instruments, those things they cover with green cloths. Whether I see them on TV or when I see them, at the doctors, my brain tells me that these are instruments of violence. We talk about knives, we talk about men throwing bottles at women, men violating, women's bodies in different ways. And when I look at them, I think these are instruments of violence to some of the women and women like myself.
Ndingathi mangikhitshwa isibeletho angazi ukuthi yini lento bayiyenza ngoba after ngaphuma ubufu bakhona kade bunuka kunento bengihlaba la lento le bengihlaba la kwafika uDeli Prudence Mabele wathi ukuthi into yangihlaba la ngiyakhala uPrudence wathi umama noma simbisele esibhedlela bangithatha bangibisele esibhedlela babangibisele esibhedlela ngazi ngothola ukuthi bathi kusililini la kwamele ukuthi bangiqhaqa babangiqhaqa lidish wakhitshwa leyo nto le ngiphuma ubufu ngangihlala nginuka phuma ubufu khona la sengisaba nokuthi noma sengingona ukuthi ngibe nomuntu engizophila naye ngoba ngibona ngathi umuntu uyabona ukuthi kwenzakalani ngempilo yami siphila kabuhlungu njengabafazi singanayibelezo kunzima nokuthi utshele noma umakhelwane wakho ukuthi awunasibeletho ngoba usabe ukuthi mawutshela umuntu ukuthi awunasibeletho kusasa umuntu uzokuthuka. Even now ngine-boyfriend ayazi ukuthi anginasibeletho ngifuna umntwana ngizomthatha kuphi umntwana mina and obvious uma ingathola ukuthi anginasibeletho izobaleka. That's why namanje ngisaba ukuthi ngiveze ubuso bami ngoba ngomunye owahlukumezeka indoda yangidivorce ingidivosele ukuthi ngoba ngine-HIV anginasibeletho. And so sicela ukuthi ugovernment ayenze iplan abone ukuthi wenza njani. Kubuhlungu ungabi nomntana umfazi, kubuhlungu ungabi nesibeletho ngoba ngawona la madoda lawo indoda mayithola ukuthi vele unasibeletho idlala ngawo. Sometimes uva ama-pains la like mina nginokuva ama-pains la ngaphakathi ngingazi ukuthi ngiyenzeni. Hambe ngiye ekhemist ngiyothenga bomaflejali, ngithenge i-doxycline, ngithenge i-vaginal cream ngoba kusuke kubuhlungu la ngaphakathi, especially uweda mayibheda makubanda hlale ngizwa ubuhlungu la ngaphakathi. Mawuthi uyiseklinikhi uyotshela uneseklinikhi ukuthi nesizokutshela ukuthi hayi unama-pains ngoba usebenzisa i-condom. Kanti akusiloko, asazi ukuthi why. Nini isibeletho sihlala sibuhlungu, ama-pains mina umzimba wami vele ngihlale ngibinele. Ne-sex ngiyayisaba ngoba uma ngiheavy sex esikhathini esiningi ngiyalimala la ngaphakathi angazi ukuthi yini into engilimazayo.
That's absolute torture.
Yes, yeah.
That's absolute torture and done to you by the state, a place where you thought you are much safer than to be at home or even doing your own operation or a backyard operation to help yourself. So now for you to gain access to health, you have to bargain at some point. But now the interesting part is that after having gone through the traumatic experience, you still found strength to reach out to other women. What was in your head to make sure that there is awareness around the issue of sterilization? And if you are found to be diagnosed with HIV, this could be the chance of you losing your uterus or your tubes getting cut. What made you reach out and not just sit in your own corner and nurse yourself, sit with your trauma, but you reached out? What was going through your mind?
Okay, as I said earlier, like I felt that there is a need for justice because this was a theme in HIV positive women. And at the time, the main issue was to keep HIV positive people alive, and make sure that babies born of HIV positive women do not get, HIV, and I must also say that sterilizing a woman living with HIV does not prevent, HIV. It doesn't prevent prevention of mother-to-child transmission because there's been medication for prevention of mother-to-child transmission since 2002. So there was just no justification. So after the whole, treatment issue began to get settled, we began to talk about our human rights, so the human rights voice, began to increase because in a way people had achieved the right to health and dignity because they had, access to ARVs now. But I was not sure about the right to dignity for women, and I was beginning to observe that, actually there are no people living with HIV. There are men and women living with HIV, and experiences of men and women living with HIV are completely different. And as women living with HIV, we need to organize, even organize separately, because our issues, they are not seen, and people don't necessarily see them, as issues. And this issue of sterilization sort of was that main issue, although there were also issues of gender-based violence as well, because women like Gugu Dlamini, for an example, they had been murdered, and we were there being the Gugu Dlamini Action Committee, fighting because she was part of our support groups, but then we were thinking, we are fighting her partner, we are fighting men, we are fighting society for stoning us to death, but there's also another form of violence, grievous violence that we face in hospitals as HIV positive women. So at the time, and I was also working for the International Organization of HIV Positive Women, and I was beginning to see this everywhere I went. We ran a sexual and reproductive health training program for young HIV positive women in Namibia. We're calling that program Young Women's Dialogue. So we ran this program for them in Namibia, and we were telling them about contraceptives and things that they can do. But then these women kept on saying, why are you telling us about contraceptives? Because Tina, we have been sterilized. And that is how we identified this issue in Namibia and sort of moved with it. And to me, it was like, okay, maybe it is the time to move this issue in South Africa, because it means this is a global issue. And also in working in Namibia, we learned that because Namibia was part of South Africa, discrimination of women, not just women, I must say that it's poor black women, is probably the same. It all starts, from population policies, the major one being that one of 1974, which was about sterilizing black poor women and also giving black poor women injections because, the apartheid, government was trying to manage population of black people, and then it became, to say, oh, so apartheid crimes are played on us as black poor women, and we have to fight for that because it is continuing. So we started then to do this particular work, like of advocacy around this issue in South Africa in 2008.
Wow.
That's now how many years?
That's now how you got to it's interesting now that you mentioned 2008, because when I read the report, it indicates that some of the atrocities of this sterilization with the women who took the case to the Commission for Gender Equity, it dates it back as far back as 2005. And you just mentioned that in terms of the treatment for mother-to-child transmission treatment, it has been there since like early 2000, 2002 with the MSF. But still, even after that, 5 years later, women were still being sterilized. They were still being coerced into sterilization. And now here you are with this kind of an NGO, broadening the awareness horizon that if you are HIV positive, be aware that they are going to tell you to stop giving birth, to stop having children, to stop living your normal life with your uterus as a woman.
Yes.
At the time. But what did you do then when you get to see that it's continuing, even with the availability of the ARVs and the treatment for the mother-to-child transmission?
Okay, many things, and I must tell you, Honorable, that so like 2000, early 2000, I was late, 1990s, and the latest case we have in the complaint we sent to this Commission for Gender Equality was in 2015. And what is said, what is said is that, I know that if we were to go back, to look for these cases, we will find them. I mean, as a matter of fact, I must state that since the report of the Commission for Gender Equality was released in February 2020, other women have come forward to say, we've seen the report, this also happened to us. The CGE informed that women are coming forward to say this also happened to us. So it has not stopped. So when we formed a Her Rights Initiative, it was like a collection of women, HIV positive women and other feminist women who were supporting us, like human rights lawyers and, women who were affected. So it was a group of 8 women, because we felt that we needed to operate within a structure, that an organization that is going to specifically look at this particular issue, so that we educate other women. We try and highlight the impact of this particular issue, because it's not just on a woman as an individual. It spills to the family and the entire community, because your family, your own family, they become ashamed of you, and you lose support. You lose, everything. There are issues of mental health. There are women who are sick, with gynecological issues coming from this problem. There are women who have hormonal issues, and there are women who have not had the opportunity of doing a scan to know exactly what happened. They don't know, and that bothers them. They don't know whether their tubes are tied, whether they put pegs, or they cut their tubes, or they bend their tubes, or they cut and bend their tubes. And some of the women will say, all I read in my file, or all that I was told, was that I'm going to have a tubal ligation. We are not medical people, so women are not going to understand what tubal ligation is, So it's creating that awareness, and creating that awareness to say, try and empower yourself, because this was not your fault. You have HIV, but your situation is more complicated, So a normal support group is not necessarily going to assist you. So the goal of coming together as women to try and organize around this was, first of all, to stop it. Because in 1998, it had gone on for more than a decade without anything being said or done to stop it. So it was tried to prevent it from happening, and also to try, to get the Department of Health to support these women differently. Are they, getting psychosocial support for the women, gynecological care for the women, reversal of the sterilizations, where possible, and also easing the adoption laws, because, some of the women will try to adopt, but if you have HIV, you cannot, adopt because you don't make the score, but yet other women were looking after orphans of other women who had died because of HIV, and just to get the women to get some closure, and some women would say, if someone can come to me and just say, I am sorry, and indeed some women wanted to be compensated, and compensation was coming from the fact that I have been violated, and even if they offer to reverse the sterilization, I don't want to go to theater. I do not want to be wheeled to theater because I was traumatized in theater. I don't want anything to do with the theater. So what we did, initially, we obviously tried to have an audience to speak to the Minister of Health, the previous Minister of Health, Dr. Mthembu, about this particular issue. And that was, difficult. Obviously, you don't just, reach the minister. And we're hoping for the minister, because we realize that if we go to the provinces, the power lies with the minister. Legal obligations and policies come from the minister, because at the time we had been educated, so we knew that doctors can't just do something in hospital. It has to be a policy, and there has to be a budget line for it, because for you to go to theater, there's an anesthetist, there's a theater bed, there are all these people and money that is involved. So we're thinking that, maybe this is government policy. People are waiting for women are waiting for meaningful operations, but we are taken to theater. And some women, even after giving birth, they are taken to theater. Even if they are capable of giving birth natural, they are taken to theater so that they are sterilized. This is wastage of health resources. That money could be going to ARVs, and other things. So we tried and we did not succeed for a while. And we were lucky that we found ourselves in a conference, in an international AIDS conference in, was it Vienna? Yes, in Austria. And the minister was there, you know, so we sought an audience with the minister, and the minister met with us and his officials in that conference. Yes, yeah, you know, and we told him that, you know, this is happening, you know, and we are obviously concerned, and some of us are affected. We want to work with you to end this. And he reported that he had had media reports about it. And he was not able to assist us. He told us that he's not able to assist us because what we are telling him about are anecdotes. You know, they're self-reported stories from different women. It's not scientific evidence.
Lord.
You know, yes, yeah, that this has happened. You know, and we had to think about what
does that mean?
What does that mean? You know, and as HIV positive women, we were very conscious of the fact that we are trying to challenge the medical establishment here. We don't have any power, you know, as individuals, but also as in society. You know, doctors are respected, they have the political clout, you know, so who are you to try and question what the doctors are saying to you? So we're aware that it is going to be difficult. So what we did coming back from that conference is that we went to the University of KwaZulu-Natal. I was a student at the university of the time. I am still a student at the university of the time. You know, approached them to say, you know, there's this particular issue and we want to partner with the university because the government, the department wants this to be presented as scientific evidence. I mean, we tried and the university came to our support, so they agreed to collaborate with us to conduct a study on forced and coerced sterilizations of women living with HIV in South Africa. So we work with the School of Law at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, as well as HEAD. It's a division for health economics, yeah, and HIV within the university. So they supported us, and also us, obviously, Her Rights Initiative. And we had women had come forward, even within the TAC and other organizations in the Eastern Cape, to say this has happened to them. But because of resources, we were able to conduct the study in 2 provinces, Gauteng and KZN. You know, and indeed, you know, women, you know, said that this had been happening to them. You know, these are the circumstances, you know, within which, you know, this was happening. So when they are pregnant, you know, giving birth, when they have gynecological issues, but most of it was around giving birth. This is when women were sterilized, you know. And some of the women, you know, were telling us, you know, that their entire uteruses had been removed because fears that they will have cancer at some point, although there were no investigations or anything that had been done.
Not even a conclusive study that
suggests that, you know, cancer, you know, would be an issue. You know, and what was comforting for us was that some of the health workers knew that was wrong because they were hesitant to perform these procedures, you know, of the women. But the instruction was already out there. You know, some of the nurses, you know, there's a theory or an attitude that is out there that nurses are not supporting HIV positive women. Nurses are not supporting women. You know, some of the nurses were supporting women to say, you are young, you know, this should not be happening to you, you know, but it is what it is. It will happen to you. So in the 2 provinces, we found what we call hospitals that are capital of sterilizations. And this is Tembisa Hospital in Gauteng and Prince Msheni in KwaZulu-Natal. You know, and we call them capital of sterilizations because the majority of women in our study had been sterilized in those hospitals. And it was clear that it's systematic and it is policy, because you don't take a person to theater without booking a theater. Someone has to authorize, you know, and as I said earlier, there is money that is involved in this particular operation that is not necessary and violent to women. So we then, after the report was published, we went to the Ministry of Health in Pretoria to present the findings of our study to the Department of Health.
Was it still now the same minister?
Yes, yeah, it was still Dr. Motsoaledi. Yeah, unfortunately, he was not able to attend the meeting, although obviously we had hoped that we'll meet with him. We met with the senior officials. In fact, the official that we were dealing with was Dr. Yogen Pillay, who was, like our main point of contact. We present, and we went obviously with our colleagues from the School of Law in the University of KwaZulu-Natal and other colleagues from the Women's Legal Center. And the Women's Legal Center had done the legal analysis of our research, and they'd seen some of the women, and took their stories, so that they look at, what the Constitution, says, what is the case law, what went wrong, and more importantly, what can be done with the Sterilizations Act of 1998 to make sure that it is implemented, to make sure that it's not just a piece of legislation, but it works for poor black women, and by the way, white women living with HIV have not come forward in all our studies to say we have been sterilized, and this is throughout the world, and in all the media that has to do with forced sterilizations, white, Indian, and colored women living with HIV have not come forward, and obviously we have not had a case of a man living with HIV being sterilized, so it was about black poor women, and obviously it's gender because it's women. It doesn't target men living with HIV. So we presented the findings and what we were proposing, the department does, which is strengthening the implementation of the policy, of the act, breaking it down into policy instruments so that it's implemented and making sure that this does not continue, and seeking audience with the women so that they talk about how are they going to assist, the women with health issues, psychological issues, and indeed compensation because the rights had been violated, and we already had, we didn't have the case law of Namibia at the time, but the court, proceedings of Namibia were continuing at the time. Sadly, I would say the department were not able to report back on what they had done in terms of implementing, our recommendations. We followed up for some time, and not much, nothing happened, I'll put it that way.
So that was before you went to CGE?
That was before we went to CGE, yes. And after meeting with the National Office, National Department of Health, we also had a meeting with the Provincial MEC for Health in KwaZulu-Natal. And we're fortunate in that particular meeting because the CGE were also able to join us, to attend. In fact, the CGE had facilitated that particular meeting for us. So we went as women living with HIV and also the researchers. I was also a researcher at the time. I'd done my MA. And we presented to the MEC, who's now the head of health in Parliament. He was not convinced about the science aspect of the study, but, the professors were there, and the CGE were there, to say, this is scientific, this is the methodology that was, presented and all of that. And he then became sort of receptive to what we were saying. Unfortunately, even in KwaZulu-Natal, nothing that, came forward, because what we wanted, for an example, were things like, a circular to all hospitals, and we'd like to see, that circular, a policy, maybe even a joint media statement, you meeting with the women, apologizing to the women, and telling women what will happen. So that did not happen. And then in 2012, the Department of Health were reviewing their policy, their contraceptives policy, and we heard about this. And we insisted that we want forced sterilization of HIV positive women to be in that particular policy. We, fought. So forced sterilization of HIV positive women got into that Department of Health policy, the 2012 contraceptives and family planning policy. However, we were disappointed in the sense that although it got in like in a box. It is like a paragraph, word for word of what we'd written. We were hoping that, the box would be there and then they would break it down and mainstream it, in the whole
Solution
contraceptives.
by solution.
Solution by solution, and also targets, sort of, so we kind of felt that, okay, we don't feel that we have been listened to, in a way. And that was 2012, and obviously sterilizations happened. So that was, our engagement with government. Yeah, and also, we also had a meeting. We had a meeting with the current Minister of Health on this particular issue. I think it was close to 2009 elections. So we had a meeting with him and presented this issue to him as a matter of concern. He was really concerned about it, but then he was not able to deal with it at the time because it was election time, and he, said that, let the elections, pass, then we'll deal with this matter after that. And, unfortunately, that did not happen. And because of all of those reasons, we then felt that, maybe it is now appropriate that we seek other ways of redress, and then we submitted the complaint to the Commission for Gender Equality to try and advocate on our behalf, so that, there's redress for us, and also that other HIV positive women are prevented from being violated in this manner.
Okay. So you are mentioning so many violations, and seated here I'm thinking, what kind of a government we live in? They violate you for your right to have children. And then the law of the only chance you can have a child through adoption has an element of scoring on it when you are an HIV positive woman. There is also an element of equality where when women were diagnosed with HIV, there was only one recommendation for them. So this kind of a law which exists, or a policy exists within our health sector, says a woman must not bear a child anymore, but a man will not be sterilized. And a woman instead will not even be given contraceptives. There will be the most extreme measure that's going to be done on a woman. And I also sense that there is also an element of women not having to access land, like in the case of KZN, which you mentioned. If you don't have a boy child, you are forbidden from owning a land because it's deemed like only men can own a piece of land. So if you had a boy child, your security in terms of owning a piece of land was going to be through that child, but now you've been violated. You don't even stand a chance of either having that child through your own birth or an adoption. And that is all within the laws of this country. But what would be your perception of the actual laws that exist in the country which violate women in many ways than others? Through all of this, that the law says you cannot have access to land, but then even if it's a case that is happening only in KZN, KZN is not an island. KZN is in South Africa.
Yes, yeah.
So that is allowed to happen in South Africa. That as a woman, if you become sterilized and you have no chance of having a boy child anymore, so chances of you having land is not there anymore. Is that the reason why you stay in Pretoria now? Because that's the only place you can buy a home.
Okay, I'm in Pretoria because of a job. The land experience is not my experience. It's one of the findings of our initial report with the University of KwaZulu-Natal. We're asking questions about the impact of sterilizations on women,
on all women,
beyond what just is happening in their body, So it's access to economic opportunities, and the land issue is coming mainly from women in rural areas, and also there are financial impacts. For an example, our study, one of the findings is that women were saying that economic opportunities or opportunities to participate in a community is actually, as women, is centered around children. You'll have access to the community or councillors or power because you have a child, and you have to go to that meeting where you talk about crèches and early childhood development. Then you begin to talk about other issues. But as a woman or in Nyumba who can no longer have children, you are not able to go there. So your access is limited in that sense. And because of that, also, you are more likely to stay in a violent relationship. And you are also more likely to be violated, because now violence against women is intersecting with HIV, and on top of HIV, then there is sterilization. So you are more likely to be violated and stay in that relationship, because your self-esteem is also taken away from you. And what was also coming from the study, one of the findings of the study is that women are actually more comfortable disclosing their HIV status than disclosing the fact that they are sterilized, because this is more shameful. And some women, we're talking about the financial impact. I mean, myself personally, because I was lucky that, I had HIV and many other problems, but I was, able to go to university. I went to university when I was 30 years old. I've tried IVF 6 times in my life. So that's a financial impact on me, because I was not working for anything else. I was working, saving all my money and putting my money into this IVF. And other women were doing the same, and others would say, I also go to traditional healers and get that bottle with the hope that something will happen. Or I allow my mother-in-law to take me to that traditional healer and that one and the other one, because I don't want her to know that I can't conceive. My husband knows, but my husband is not going to tell the family, because it's a shame for him as well. So I'm going around taking this bottle. They make me sick. I'm also taking ARVs, and I know that I shouldn't be taking these bottles, and I pay for them, but I have to, just to survive. So that's the financial impact, and sort of deep impact to say, I am depressed. I isolate myself. When women are out there with their traditional attires, dancing as women, I actually don't do it because I feel half. And that child I was giving birth to when I was sterilized died a little later. The child died when I was giving birth. So I don't have children at all, yet there's nothing that I can do about it.
The government must make it this crazy. Angazi ngathi i-special treatment abo-doctor, i-specialty nabe basiforced ukusikhipha le-ibeletho, ngoba uma uthi uya-check-a kusho ukuthi vele le-ibeletho abasikhiphanga kahle, ngoba sineyinkinga there. Bonke labantu laba bakhiphe le-ibeletho ngenkani babalekile. If you got boyfriend, ulala ne-boyfriend, awuhlale kusasa i-boyfriend iyabaleka ayisakufuni, uyazibuza nawe ukuthi ngabe yini ye-wrong ngami. And they say it, if mhlawumbe i-boyfriend wakho iyazi ukuthi ukhipha isibeletho, uyakuthuka. I said, ayisuka ligogogo leli, udlala ligogogo, uyayibona ukuthi it's painful. Basi-check at least bayenze iplan, basithumelela abo-doctor, kube nabo-doctor la sizo-check-wa khona ukuthi inkinga yini. Sometimes uhleli, I don't have womb, but i-discharge iyaphuma, ngizibuza ukuthi i-discharge ibuyaphi yona. And uma uthi uyive ngathi ubovu, and ubovu phela buphuma emntwini onjani, buphuma emntwini onesilonda. Mana mangithi ngiyazi-check-a nginasilonda, but mangithi ngiyabheka ngithi ubovu. Njengama-panty line, ufaka ama-panty line, lama-panty line lawadurayo lawa bathi akudonsa ubovu inini, but awuncedakali nganiksi, especially wena if it's bad. Ungakhala uma ungangena nabo ungangibona. Uyakhala just because kuyaphina isibeletho, uzibuza ukuthi kanjani ngoba awunasibeletho. Mara ubuhlungu engibuzwa la ngaphakathi ngiyalimala. Njengoba ngisho ukuthi mina i-sex vele ngiyayisaba. My boyfriend vele nje uzobaleka, anginamsebenzi naye ngoba uyasho ukuthi wena, when it comes to sex vele wena ufuna. Ngiyayisaba just because when I have sex ngiva ama-pains, angazi ukuthi yini. Ngiva ama-pains.
As I read it, I feel like health, justice, the police, social development, and the Department of Women should be involved in the implementation of all the recommendations. But another thing that is highlighting for me is that when the report was released in March on the 24th, and immediately on the 27th, the Minister of Women released a statement that's very promising, that we are going to follow it up. We're going to put an end to it. We're going to make sure that these things never happen to our women again. And my fear is that you also mentioned that as late as 2018, there were still cases of sterilization simply because women were HIV positive. By 2018, everyone else knew there's ARVs that are available for everyone. There's treatment for you to have a child that will not be HIV positive. And to this date, the women we have met with, in fact, that came to approach us to help them through this process, and they are looking for reparations, like you're saying. Most of them, they don't look for the compensation monetary form. They want justice, because the doctors who have operated on these women, all of them, none of them have suffered the consequences of doing this. So it gets to show that government knows about it. It's a law at some point, but they don't want to confirm that we implemented or we came up with a law to cut the tubes of women, to remove their uteruses. And the report itself is seeking to give those reparations to women. But I get that they are deeply hurt, and none of the recommendations have been implemented. Even all your attempts and efforts to reach out to all these departments, no one has come forth, and nothing has ever happened. Now you have come, as some of these women that have mentioned you, for us to be calling you now today, say, how do you get involved in all these stories of the women? How would you like us to play a role in all of this?
Okay, I'll address you as a member of parliament.
Yeah.
You know that for us, it's very important that the recommendations from the CGE are implemented. You know, because in a way, the CGE was our last hope, so to speak. And we're very excited when the report came out, because we had lodged the complaint in 2015. So the report came out 5 years later, like we're very excited when it came out. You know, and the recommendations are clear. You know, they're talking about the need for government, the Department of Health in particular, to engage, you know, meet with the women and negotiate a settlement, you know, a compensation in whatever form with the women that have been violated. It recommends, you know, that women are given access to psychosocial support so that they are able to cope with this, because this is not an event. The violation itself is an event, you know, but living with sterilization and HIV, it's not an event for women. It follows you every day. You know, I have my scar, and I did not need that scar, and I see it every day. And each time I see that scar, I know, you know, what that scar represents. You know, other women who were sterilized, you know, whilst, you know, giving birth, you know, in our study were saying that each time I am quiet and I'm looking at my child, I remember that when I gave birth to this child, my body was violated. My life, half of my life as a woman, was taken away. The birthday of that particular child is the anniversary of the violation. You know, so it's something that is quite deep. You know, the report also talks about looking into the Sterilizations Act of 1998. We call that act the Cinderella Act, you know, in the sense that the Sterilization Act was not enacted because, you know, there was like a demand for reforming sterilization, you know, as women were not coming out there, you know, to say we violated an apartheid with sterilization and it's happening now. The act came about because sterilizations and abortion were in the same act. You know, and abortion was obviously legalized and sterilization was there. So when the Abortion Act was enacted and abortion became legally sort of acceptable, they had then to find an act, develop an act that was going to deal with sterilization. You know, so it's a Cinderella, it's an act that was enacted like by circumstance, you know, and it has not been monitored by women because it was not created of, you know, the demand, you know, so it's an act fact, that is there.
It was just imposed on people.
Yeah, and when we're doing the complaint to the CGE, for an example, like a lot of international work had happened on this particular issue. And South African women, like, were contributing to those. United Nations, the Office of the Human Rights, for an example, it had called sterilization of HIV positive women as torture, as inhumane treatment. In other sections, it even calls it crimes against humanity. Because we must also understand that it's not just HIV positive. It didn't start with HIV positive women. It's what racists and eugenics have been doing to black poor women. In America, in Canada, in Australia, in England, and even here in South Africa. We've seen class actions on forced sterilizations of black poor women throughout the world, but we have not seen, this here in South Africa. And because you're a member of parliament, I would say maybe our situation would have been different had this matter made it to that reconciliation project, to that TRC commission, that was talking about the rights that were violated. We were children at the time, so we're not able to talk for ourselves, So as our leaders, we would have appreciated that, because we think that, had this issue been settled there, we wouldn't be suffering now. And to say that when we counted, these sterilizations, we realized that 26 laws, both internationally and nationally, had been breached. They had been violated. The declarations that South Africa has, signed up to, yes, yeah, including national laws, So 26 violations of laws has happened to our bodies, and that is deep, and all that we are calling for is the implementation of the recommendations of that report, and we are excited and hopeful, that Parliament, members of Parliament are coming to us, and that women have come to you to say, please assist us, because when we were at the launch, it was announced that, and it is also in the report, that we will know what is happening because the department will report back after 3 months, and obviously as complainants, as main complainants, then that information would come to us. When the report came out, we were even hoping that, because it got so much publicity, so women were even hoping that, maybe the ministers would want to come and see us. Maybe the ministers would take us to these hospitals so that the hospitals explain what really happened, so that the hospitals see us. That you are not doing that to some women. It was us, and we are here and we are hurting, so that there is that closure, and that has not, happened, and it, obviously really concerning, because how long do you want to prolong the pain? And if new women are coming now to say they've been sterilized, how long is this going to go on for? And it's not going to go to disappear because of magic, because as women, we are talking about it in the media, it is going to disappear, Honorable MP, because something is done by government to stop it. It's the only way, unfortunately.
Yeah. With all these things, ezenzekileyo kuwe and the other women abasebenzile, but we want to sort of now also do an awareness so that women bayazi what kind of a sign is coming to them. Babela ba doctor bezoti sizokusterilizer because you're HIV positive, sizokusterilizer because you've got cervical cancer now. We see cervical cancer. What are the signs when they start this conversation, and what should women be cautious of in order for them not to fall victim of this particular atrocity?
I think okubalekile to the women ukuthi bayawazi amalungelo abo, and amalungelo abo athi umzimba wakhe, mangase ngasimplify, umzimba wakhe, amalungelo akhe and ama choices akhe uyikhethela wona, and I must ngisho ukuthi sterilization, it is not emergency. I save life. Yabo akuyona into ekufanele ukuthi yenziwe manje. I save life, ayenza ukuthi responde better kuma ARVs ayiprevent i-transmission ye-HIV. So mangabe uyoteta esibhedlela or uyele enye into and then bese kuthiwa kuqalwa indaba yokuthi uzovalwa, unelungelo lokuthi unqabe. Siyazi ukuthi kunzima kubanye abantu besifazane ukuthi bathi bayanqaba kodokotela, kodwa unalo ilungelo lokuthi uthi ngisahamba ngisayocabanga ngakho. Kungcono ke manje ngoba kunani inhlangano ezisizayo la uzoshaya khona ucingo ukuthi ngitshenwe lento ngenze njani, ngisahamba ngisayocabanga ngakho. And mangabe ngithi ngisayocabanga ngakho kusho ukuthi ngeke ngize ngibuye or ngizobuya ngithi angikwenzi lokho ekufanele ukuthi ngikwenze. But okubalekile ukuthi umuntu azi ukuthi umzimba wakhe ilungelo lakhe nechoice yakhe. And then kulokhu kwesibeletho komdlavuza wesibeletho inkosazana le akhuluma ngayo usisi yayila eGauteng yona ekwathiwa ikhishwa isibeletho sayo ngoba inomdlavuza wesibeletho. Ngifuna ukusho ukuthi akukholakala ukuthi lokho kwaku right ngalezathu ezilandelayo. Okokuqala ukuze kwaziwe ukuthi unomdlavuza wesibeletho kufanele ukuthi kwenziwe i-pap smear, ukuthi kuthathwe isicubu sesibeletho sakho siyise laboratory siyotest bese siyabuya. Leso sicubu ngeke sisho ukuthi une-cancer, sizothi unegciwane elibanga i-cancer or elingenza ukuthi uze ufike kwi-cancer. Mangabe sibuyile leyo mphumela ithi unalo lelo gciwane and i-rate yakhona i-high, then bathatha esinye isicubu ekuthiwa i-biopsy, basihambise bayosihlola la bekhipha khona isicubu kakhulu, bayosibheka ukuthi igciwane kuphela noma sekuyi-cancer yini. Okwesithathu okwenzakalayo say i-cancer isitholakele, ukwazi ukuqala i-chemotherapy yokuqala uphinde uqale i-chemotherapy yesibili ukususa isibeletho. Into yokugcina eyenziwa le ngasekugcineni, but le nkosazana akhuluma ngayo yayingenziwanga i-pap smear, yayingenziwanga i-biopsy, yayingakaze ithole treatment ye-cancer. So udokotela akakwazi udokotela ukubuka o acabange ukuthi hayi wena ngicabanga ukuthi unomdlavuza wesibeletho manje so ngizokhipha isibeletho sakho, yabo. Kwakuyi-sterilization nokumtraumatize ngoba mangabe sesiphumile sonke isibeletho akubona kuphela ukuthi awusakwazi ukuthola izingane, kusho ukuthi awusakwazi umzimba wakho awusakwazi ukufunctiona kahle, ama-hormones akho awasakwazi. So you are a woman in your 20s but you are living in a body of a woman who is in her 70s, yabo. So it is a violation, yabo. And njengoba ngichazile lezo zomdlavuza kufanele ukuthi zonke le step zenzakala.
And I agree with you fully. I always say, with all the horrible conditions that the women are finding themselves under and all the atrocities, all the violence and the crime that's meted to women, majority of it is the state. So Parliament is part of the state. Justice is part of the state. The executive is part of the state. But the people are the government. So once the people hear you out and we all force the Parliament to implement the laws, because the report now have come out from a Chapter 9 institution, and the Chapter 9 institution says stop it, listen to them, offer help and assistance to these people. And the kind of assistance they want is very simple. They just want access to health care and offer psychological support, compensate them any way you are, fix your laws. And Parliament, you are at the right place. Parliament is where we have to fix the laws. It's nowhere else.
Yeah.
And sitting here as a member of Parliament, sent by my party, I will give you my word.
Yeah.
We are going to make sure that the report is tabled in Parliament. We are going to make sure that all the recommendations get implemented. We are going to make sure that the executive accounts for not implementing all the recommendations, and every other program you have tried so much, all the efforts you have done to reach out to them. You even had to go yourselves to find a conclusive study of your own stories. I find it very hurting and deeply hurting that a minister will not believe you. What you're telling me is just you, your story. I don't believe you. Find someone to tell me that it indeed happened to you. And in no way they feature in assisting you to find it. It means that we have a government that can just tell their people, I don't believe you are hungry. I don't believe you don't have a house. Go find a study to tell me that you don't have a home. That's the same thing. Because once a woman, there's no woman who can come up with a story not, but my uterus have been removed or my tubes have been cut. And the minister will simply say, I don't believe you, go find someone to conclude, to give you a conclusive study and make a science of this for me to understand. Even when you have done that, no one helps you, but we will make sure that we reach out to everyone else who must take action, who must account for these atrocities, and the implementation of the CGE report. It must go to Parliament. We must talk about it like every other report. And legally, you mentioned something that was very problematic for me, that you were women acting in your different NGOs, but you still don't have power. And I understand that most NGOs, they only get to be effective in what they do through financial muscle. They have to seek help through other people who can come and donate and everything. So if you operate on donation basis, whatever support you were getting at some point, it diminishes because there is no longer that financial support. But we promise to you today that we will make sure that we take up all these matters, and we are going to assist you and be with you.
Yes.
All the way. We are going to be with you all the way. The social support, the psychology support you need, the legal aspect of it, and the legal support you need, we will be offered to you. And fortunately enough, the women that have come to us already, they are being attended to by our legal department in the EFF through the legal office, and of course there is the First National Chair, Dalimpofu Services, with the legal team of the EFF. So some of those women already, they are being interviewed in order for us to draft the court papers to go and actually go and challenge this matter at court, because it cannot be that we allow a state to play ball with women in South Africa. And it's month August now. We should be at least be celebrating. Instead of celebrating, we are crying, we are deeply hurt, we are traumatized, and it has to stop. Thank you very much for telling us your story, and thank you very much for taking us through the sterilization process, because as much as we're getting it, we wanted to know this common denominator, that's being an activist in KZN who reached out to people, and not, you could have sat in your own comfortable corner, comforted yourself, found your own help, but you found it within you that I cannot, not for myself only. There are other people who are going to suffer in this process, and this process, someone has to advocate for the people, and someone has to put a stop to it. Thank you very much, Sis Promise. We'll be with you all the way, and don't hesitate to call, don't hesitate to come to these offices for help. We will also make sure that in terms of communication, we have the desk, the gender desk, that's going to help you. Every day you have women that are breaking down, they seek help. Please contact the EFF help desk and make sure that they get the help they need. And thank you very much, my dear.
Yeah. Thank you very much.